Hi there, I'm Dr. Erin Glynn, host of the Nutri Health channel, and we're here today to review how to read a nutrition label. So let's jump in. Today, we're going to be reviewing a general nutrition facts panel. I have here an example from the FDA website, and you can see it says nutrition facts at the top. This particular example calls out all of the changes that were implemented by the FDA to food labels pretty recently. This went into effect for most companies in 2020, and we'll go over what each of those changes were as we go through. These updates the FDA implemented were designed to make nutrition labels easier to understand, to make them more applicable to our lives with changes like the rules about serving sizes, and to make key information like caloric content more upfront and clear. So let's start here at the top. This says nutrition facts. You may sometimes see a label that says supplement facts, and supplement facts are specific to dietary supplements, whereas nutrition facts are specific to foods. There's a lot of the same information that's contained on both, but they are slightly different, so we'll do a separate short video on reading a supplement facts in the future. Underneath nutrition facts, you have information about servings. So you have both the servings per container and the serving size. Serving size is nice and bolded, so it's easier to see quickly. And some manufacturers will also include units here. As an example, if you're eating chips or crackers, the serving size might say about 14 chips and then have the gram weight in parentheses. So obviously that's helpful if it's there, but it's not always available. Another really great thing with the serving sizes that was updated in 2020 was the serving size requirements. The serving sizes hadn't been updated in a while, and most Americans were eating a lot more of various foods than the serving sizes listed. So the FDA updated what was considered a serving size based on updated consumption information, and this should be more in line with how much of that food you'll likely eat in a serving. We just want to take note of the serving size. It's fine if you want to measure it out once or twice so you know what a serving of that food should look like. And it's also fine to consume more or less than the entire serving. You'll just need to adjust this nutrition information accordingly. So if you consume double the serving size, you'll be doubling all of the values on the nutrition label. The point, in my view, isn't to count every last calorie you eat. The point is to be able to understand what nutrition the foods you're consuming are contributing to your diet so you can make the best choices for you. Under serving information, we have calories. This is shown big and bold so you can quickly assess how much energy, how many calories you're getting from a serving of that food. We also recently did a short video on how to calculate your daily caloric needs. So if you don't know that number, please check that out. You want to think about how this number of calories fits into your daily caloric needs. So for example, if your caloric needs are about 2,300 calories per day, a serving of this food would provide 10% of your daily calories. Underneath the calories section is information about the macronutrients. So this is your fat, carbohydrate, and protein with a few other nutrients we'll call out. You'll see fat listed as total fat, and this also includes what's called a percent daily value here on the right-hand side. The percent daily values are there to tell you how this food fits into about how much of that nutrient you should be consuming per day. So this particular food has 8 grams of total fat, which is about 10% of the total fat you should be consuming in a day. Now, these percent daily values, you can see the asterisk here, and that little footnote is down here that says the percent daily value is how much a nutrient in a serving of food contributes to a daily diet. And they're using a 2,000 calorie a day diet as general nutrition advice. We don't all need the same amount of calories, so these are estimates, but it just gives you a general idea. If this number was 100% for the total fat, you would know that that's very high in fat because it's giving you basically all of the fat that you're supposed to consume in a day. Okay, underneath fat, we have it separated into two types of fat that we want to limit or avoid. Those are saturated and trans fats. The same goes for cholesterol and sodium. These are all things that we want to try to limit in the diet. So they're specifically called out, and again, with a daily value, so you can see about how much it's contributing to your overall caloric needs for the day. Another example, sometimes you'll see something that's very high in sodium, 50% of your daily value for sodium. So that would be a food you would want to try to limit or avoid because of the very high sodium content. Next, we have total carbohydrates. These are further broken out into types of carbohydrates. You have your dietary fiber, which is a carbohydrate, and sugars. Now, the total sugars can include natural sugars that are naturally occurring in the food. However, there's a new line that was added to specifically call out added sugars, sugars that are added to the food during processing. And these can include not only just regular table sugar, but anything that's adding sugar to the product, even if it's natural. So things like honey, syrups, concentrated fruit juices, all of those would contribute to this added sugars amount. And then again, we have a daily value for that. So this particular food is contributing 20% or about 1/5 of the added sugar that you want to consume in an entire day. Under carbohydrates, we have protein, and you'll notice there isn't a percent daily value here for protein. If a company specifically talks about protein on their labeling, like they say, good source of protein, then they have to put the percent daily value here. But if they're not calling out the attention to protein, they don't have to. And that's because most Americans get plenty of protein, and optimal levels of protein, grams per day, can vary quite substantially between people. Now, I mentioned they do have to put a daily value if they call attention to the protein with the labeling. If, for instance, something says good source of protein, good source of a vitamin or mineral, it has to have at least 10% of the daily value of that nutrient. If it says excellent source or high in, it has to have at least 20% of the daily value of that nutrient. And those are only for the positive nutrients, things we want to get more of. You wouldn't say excellent source of added sugars because that's actually a nutrient that we're trying to limit or avoid. Underneath the macronutrient section, then, we have vitamins and minerals, and there are 4 nutrients that have to be listed on labels. Those are vitamin D, calcium, iron, and potassium. And that's because these are 4 nutrients that a lot of Americans aren't getting enough of. So they're nutrients to focus on. Now, if a particular food has other vitamins and minerals, those can also be listed here, but those 4 are required. And you'll see there's both an absolute amount in microgram, mcg, or milligrams, as well as the percent DV. So in a day, we're supposed to get 20 micrograms of vitamin D. This particular food contributes 1/10 of that, 10% of your daily need of vitamin D. Also, based on what I mentioned before, you can see because this contains 10%, this label could say good source of vitamin D. It could say excellent source of calcium and iron because we have 20% or greater of both of those. Another example, this is just a 2-column example. And so a lot of times if a food has a small number of servings per container, the manufacturer will put both a serving and the entire container amount. This also sometimes happens if people usually consume an entire container. So here you can just see there's 2 servings per container of this food, and it has the nutrition facts for a serving, and then that same thing multiplied by 2 to get the per container. You'll also see this double column format when a food has you add something to it. So this is commonly seen for cereal. You'll have a column that has the nutrition facts for the cereal alone, and then a column that has if you add whatever amount of milk is recommended to add to that cereal. So here is just another example. This is from a cereal box. You can see the number of servings per container, the serving size, all the things we just reviewed. This particular example also lists polyunsaturated and monounsaturated fats. Those are healthy fats or good fats, and that's optional. The manufacturer can list those if they're present in the food to call out that it has some healthy fat sources. You'll also see this particular example further breaks down the dietary fiber into soluble and insoluble types. That's just another option if they want to let you know the breakdown of that fiber. The other thing I wanted to mention is that outside the nutrition facts box, you'll have the ingredient list, and ingredients are required to be listed in descending order based on weight. Sometimes an ingredient that's listed, such as organic crisp brown rice, is going to have a parentheses with additional ingredients. So this is when it's a compound ingredient that's already made, like these rice crisps. What goes into that? You'll see this also a lot for chocolate chips and things like that. I also want to call out in this example, you can see here the first ingredient is whole grain rolled oats. That's great. The second ingredient is cane sugar. So just from sugar being the second ingredient, we're going to know that this food probably has quite a bit of sugar in it. If we go over here to the nutrition facts and we look, it actually has 15 grams of total sugars, and all 15 of those are from added sugars. Looking back at that ingredient list, we can see here we've got cane sugar, but we also have some syrups. So organic brown rice syrup, organic honey, organic molasses. Even though those are natural sources of sugars, they're contributing to added sugars. Underneath the ingredient list, you'll have your allergens. If there are any true allergens that are in the product, almond specifically here, that has to be called out. Then you may also see may contain, and then a list of additional allergens. Sometimes that's there because it's manufactured in a facility that handles these other allergens. Sometimes it's from the ingredients themselves. There might be risk for cross-contamination with something else. So just know that this is where you should see all of the potential allergen information directly under the ingredients list. That's about it. I hope that covers all of the different things you'll see when you look at a nutrition facts label. And now it's a little more clear what each of those components are and how you can assess them as part of your overall healthy diet. Thanks for joining us for that review of how to read a nutrition label. I hope you learned something. And if you are learning from and or enjoying our content, please like, follow, subscribe on any social platforms you interact with. You can find us at Nuchi Health, that's NUCHI Health, on all social platforms. I'll see you soon.